Hello, once post focus, Nottingham Forest suffer a painful defeat to Brentford as their Champions League advantage slips away, and with it pretty much all their momentum after a 2-0 defeat tonight. But how bad were we? Can we recover? Joining me to discuss all that and more, first of all, is Chief in Chicago. Chief, good afternoon where you are. How are you today?
I was doing fine until about 2 hours ago. But yeah, happy to be here on the show again. Thanks for having me. But yeah, tough one today.
Certainly was. We'll get into that after we introduce Paul Morley. Paul, evening where you are. How are you?
Yeah, despondent, obviously, as the man behind me would say, but we're far from out of any race for the top five, and hopefully no one's stupid enough to write us off.
Well, hopefully not. Good to have a good number of people with us already. I'll ask the chaps how bad they thought we were. I mean, I'm reading the comments. I do, I know people are really digging out the players. I'm really loath to dig out players, saying we bottled it. I saw cowards on Twitter believing our own hype. I really don't see it that way personally. I think I was saying to Chief before we started, we look absolutely knackered, which is worrying because we've got another game in 4 days. We look like we've got no confidence at all, which is worrying because we didn't create anything tonight. I don't think players believe in their own hype. I actually wish they were a bit more because there was no swagger about them today, apart from Olaina, who then fell over for the first goal. But they look very deflated to me, and we'll get into a few other issues. But Chief, how bad were we, do you think?
Pretty bad. Horrible time for Milenkovic to have what I thought was his worst game in a Forest shirt. You said Olaina fell down. It also looked like Milenkovic just stopped running on that first goal. So maybe he gets back, gets a header on it, or at least there's two guys, surrounding the ball there when Aina falls down. So pretty bad, like you said, no swagger. Did they, other than that one kind of weak attempt from Malanga, they never really had any shot on goal, no threats of any consequence in the first half. I was expecting a much better effort, kind of circle the wagons after, the end of the FA Cup run. That it's, Morgan Gibbs-White saying, hey, we got 5 cup finals left. I thought we were going to get a big-time performance out of him. He was largely invisible aside from the yellow card. And really the whole team. They looked disjointed. None of the balls were falling their way. They didn't really make anything happen. I thought that was a terrible performance at the worst time.
Yeah, and I didn't see the Everton game. Poor old Chief did. Flew halfway around the world to watch us stink it up by the sound of it just as badly. But yeah. we were poor for whatever reason, Paul. Someone said in the chat we looked like a lower mid-table team. It did have that vibe about it, which is very concerning in general. What did you make of it?
Yeah, flat, wasn't it? Flat. I think the 2 goals, and I won't go on to talk about them, but just so uncharacteristic of how we've been defending those situations all season. And you obviously mentioned Milenkovic, and obviously he was involved in both, and just a bit of indecisiveness, 2 times, which is really, really unusual for what we've seen from him. And yeah, I think tiredness. I mean, there's a stat about the number of days Forest have before games and how it impacts them going into games. And I think I've got it here this season, 12 times this season, Forest have had more days than the opposition going into games, and we've got 26 points from those 12 games. When it's been level and we've had the same days as the opposition, 14 games, got 24 points. And then, like tonight, where the opposition have more days than us, that's happened 8 times this season. In those 8 games, we've got 10 points. So there's a big difference. It seems to be that Forest struggle when they've got, less time to prepare for matches than the opposition. And obviously, looking forward, we've got that coming up for the Palace game as well. Although weirdly, it feels like, after tonight, almost that game can't come quick enough. We just need to get tonight out of our system and get back on the pitch and put it right. So, it was a strange one. It was always fraught with danger. Everyone would have seen the away record that Brentford have got since the turn of the year. So, they came here tonight posing a lot of danger and a lot of threat. We started off slowly and sort of handed the initiative to them. It felt like we kind of got a foothold for most of the first half, and then just had that bit of a disaster at the end of the first half, which I'm sure changed the halftime team talk big time and changed the whole mood in the stadium by the sound of what you could hear on the TV.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I thought Brentford were, in a way, really good. They're very workmanlike. They're very disciplined. They defended as we have done, hard to beat, and then they've got quality up front. Like I think Damsgaard's a really good player, and Bumo obviously, and Visser. You can see why we signed him. So I'm not going to take anything away from Brentford. And it did help them. They had 12 days, as Paul mentioned, between games, so that was a factor. But well done to Brentford. I think they were good and they played well. Let's go back to the start then. I mean, team selection, Chief, it felt really good. Like Olaina comes back and you think, oh, we're in business here. What did you make of it when you saw the team? Any complaints at all? I can't imagine there were.
No, I mean, that's their best 11. That's the group that's kind of gotten them here. I love having Yates back in. Olaina, I know there's rumors that he was going to be ready, but I was surprised to see his name out there and thrilled. I was like that, if you need a little momentum boost and have more positive vibes, nobody brings that more than Aina. So when he was in the starting 11, I was like, oh, here we go. Put another couple of quid on Forest. We got a good shot here. And I thought he looked pretty lively early, and but maybe, obviously rusty at other parts too.
Are we concerned by the way we're starting games, Paul? Spurs aside, and I don't even know if we even started Spurs that well. We got a goal and that changes everything. But a lot of recent games, we've been very flat from the start. I mean, it continued here, didn't it, I think?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the last, since we beat Brighton 7-0, we've got 9 points from 10 games, which is obviously not a great return. And a lot of that, you think of the games, Newcastle, poor start, or certainly poor first half. Villa obviously fell behind quickly. As you say, Spurs. I mean, I think you think the two or three wins we've had there, Ipswich aside, which you'd expect us to win, the win against United and the win against Spurs, we were, let's face it, we were sort of resolutely defending for most of those games, having nicked an early goal. And like you say tonight, when we don't nick the early goal, the longer the game goes on, the sort of more we struggle to impose ourselves on it. And yeah, that is obviously clearly that's a concern. It's a big concern. And again, I think they said on the commentary tonight, I can't remember the number of times, but Villa's the only game this season where we've gone behind. We're at home in December. The only time where we've gone behind and come back to win. And as soon as we go behind, we look a bit bereft of ideas and confidence, like you say, and struggling to kind of pick a way through what was clearly going to be, once they went ahead, a fairly resolute defence, and effectively they played us at our own game in the second half. Didn't they? We had 60%, they had 30%. Looked dangerous on the counter every time they went forward and hit us with a sucker punch. So we got to beat our own game pretty much.
And I think, are we really one-dimensional attack, Chief? At Hudson-Odoi, Hudson-Odoi should have gone off injured 20 minutes in, and he pulled his hamstring that sprint with the right back for Brentford. He played very well. And then everything just goes through Elanga. Are we a bit of too easy to defend against?
Yeah, it feels like Chris Wood's gone a little cold here the second, I don't know, maybe the last couple of months, where it's like he was injured and then he hasn't looked. He had the one header that went wide, and it's just like, well, if Elanga's not doing something, then where is the creativity coming from? And, that's why you have Morgan Gibbs-White, and he's one of my, favorite players. But this felt like a game where it's like, if he's, one of your captains, you need him to have everybody on their edge and be that vocal leader and be that creative force and be aggressive. And we just didn't have enough of that. There was nothing really going through the middle of the field with any sort of result. So it was disappointing. I don't know if we're too one-dimensional. We certainly have a style of play where if Forest gets ahead, then that's our comfort zone. I don't mind defending for, like against Spurs, where it's like, yeah, we scored 4 minutes in, so we'll defend for another 90 with stoppage time and be fine. But it's like once you go behind, it feels like that's, aside from the Villa game, that's been the kryptonite for Forest.
Thanks, Joe, for saying, do pay 300 people with us. Hit like if you would, that would be a big help. Let's look. The first half, there's not much to say, Paul, is there? Really? There was a ton of. It was a battle. Loads of tackles were flying in. I I mean, that's a good way to go about it. But I'd rather see as much as equally like to see the quality on the ball that Chief referenced. I'll ask you, what did you make of the ref first of all? He's getting loads of hammer, and the people in the stadium were giving him a lot of flack. Was he awful?
I think he set a bit of a rod created a bit of a rod for his own back, didn't he? He gave a couple of, soft yellow cards early on. And once you set the bar low like that, then it almost impacts the game, because it means players, having to play within themselves and not going to tackles. You want to see a game where the game flows. You want to see people get stuck in. I thought the majority of the late yellow cards he gave in the first half, it was a low bar. But on the flip side, at least he was consistent with it. I mean, there was a couple of instances, wasn't there, where their players that were on yellows committed another foul. For me, I don't think either of them were enough to warrant a red card. I think if it put reverse the hat and think, if that had been the other way around and our players had been sent off for those incidences, you'd have been spitting feathers. So I don't think we can ask that any of the sort of second yellows or second fouls by Brentford players on yellows were reds. But yeah, he wasn't great. Like I said, I just prefer refs that let the game flow and don't get the yellow card after 5 minutes. I don't think there's any need for that. And once you do that, it's always going to be a bit of a scrappy game, I think. So he didn't help in setting the tone of the game, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a factor in defeat, so I'm not going to dwell on him too much. He gave out. I didn't have any complaints about any of the yellows apart from the Anderson one particularly. But yeah, he's a bit fussy. Any thoughts on that, Chief, before we move on?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Paul. It's in America for hockey, it's playoff time. You let the boys play. Like there has to be a flow of the game. You want them to be competitive. I didn't love the Gibbs white yellow. I didn't like the Anderson one. And then it's like, if you are calling it that way, there's certainly the initial left back for them before he got subbed off. Like, if one's a yellow, then the other's a yellow. Like, how are you calling it? Because there could have been a second yellow on that player, which obviously would have drastically changed the game. So it's like, if you're going to call it, then call it. But you can't just be like, well, it doesn't meet the merit for a second yellow. Well, it was like, that's based upon how you call it. So you don't either go all the way or not at all. No half measures on that. So if you're calling it tight, continue to call it tight, because he earned that one down by the goal line where I think he knocked into it was either Alanga or Williams. And it's just like that. If he didn't already have one, you would have called him for that. So if you're going to call one, call the other, and just keep it consistent that way.
Just finishing off the first half, Paul. I mean, any frustration? I don't know if this is frustration is the right word. When Elanga gets the ball and Lewis Potter is on a yellow, I just wanted to go at him every single time.
Every time, yeah.
And he was crossing it with his left foot, and he takes corners with his left foot as well. I noticed sometimes tonight, but his left foot isn't as good as his right foot. If he thinks it is, I don't think it is personally. But you just wanted to go at it, don't you?
Yeah, I thought that was strange. But I think Forest have been guilty of that. I've said this before on here a number of times this season, where we seem to get people on yellow cards early and don't really capitalise on it. So yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, where I guess obviously if he feels there's a ball on into the box, then you don't want to waste the opportunity to cross it. But I think that there was at least once where he definitely could have pinned his ears back and exposed him, and he decided not to. I mean, in the first half in general, I think I was typing was typing a summary to you before we conceded, and that started slow, but actually kind of got away back into it. And it looked like, particularly from Ola Aina's perspective, he was and I think it was Aina who Potter fouled when he was on that second, well, potentially on the second yellow. He was sort of showing us what we've been missing, and I was feeling pretty positive looking at the second half, thinking actually we've got ourselves back in this game. We haven't necessarily created anything, but we sort of stopped the threat, and it's one of those where you could see it being a tight game and we could sneak it 1-0. But that goal just sort of changed everything. And I think Paul Baker made a comment in the comments about how it's difficult to blame Nuno when players are making mistakes. And I think the last two home games, we had the Murillo sort of misstep against Everton, and then we've talked about Milenkovic tonight. And if you eradicate those individual errors, which we haven't seen pretty much all season, we come out of those two games, all right, not having played well, but we've sort of, scraped. We've just sort of, grinded out a couple of 0-0s, which, if you stick 2 points from where we are now, we'd be sitting pretty. So it's the individual errors which have killed us in the last couple of home games, and we need to stamp that out pretty quickly for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'd written in my notes for 0-0 at half time, like, it's a good battle. We're in the game. Einer's made a great difference. I put in as well. Like he'd. I mean, I love Zach Abbott's performance at Wembley, and fair play to him. But not many fullbacks in the league can do what Einer does. He just sticks his arse out, and players bounce off him, and he's got a different dimension to his game. But yeah, that goal was brutal, Chief, wasn't it? I mean, I think you referenced Milenkovic as well. I don't think Milenkovic is blameless to me. And then I know it looks bad. He actually just slips, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. I maybe I'm crazy, but I almost put more of the blame of that goal on Milenkovic. We had an angle. I don't know if it's simulcast or not, but from behind the goal, and you see him sprinting back, and then he just moves to a jog, and the ball lands, and Ina falls down. It's in the back of your net. So if he had just kept running another 10 yards, he's right there, for that potential header or the second ball, once it hits the ground, and you clear it and live to see another day. But it's just, he slowed up, and I'm not sure the reasoning for that, but it felt like he was tracking it and then moved to a jog. Well, maybe it was a miscommunication with Ina, but for some reason that ball was allowed to fall, and it, back of our net.
We've also, that's the third goal in a row conceded at a horrible time. Like both goals again, fourth actually. Hang on, no, that's out of sequence. The Everton goal obviously is a disastrous time to concede. Both goals against City, and then this one as well. Absolute killers for momentum. So yeah, really brutal and painful one. Let's take a word for the Trent navigation, then we'll talk about half time and the change that Nuno did make. Back in action on Monday, obviously, like Paul says, feels like it can't come quick enough. If the players could just be cryogenically frozen for a few days and get their energy levels back. But Bank Holiday Monday over here in England, event at the Nav all afternoon, music festival, 15 local bands, noon till 8 p.m, free entry, and then from 8 p.m, obviously you can watch the game on the big screen at the Nav. So do get down there for that if you're not travelling down to Palace. Right, Paul, you weren't critical of Nuno. I do question Nuno a bit for this one myself. You have to take Hudson-Odoi off, sorry, because he's injured. I felt like you go with Sosa personally because we're losing. The Dominguez change felt like the change you make if it's 0-0 and you're still in the game, battling, that kind of sub. So I didn't like it. What did you make of it?
100% agree. I think I messaged you that at half time, didn't I? I think when it looked like Hudson-Odoi was sort of limping off, I said, oh, that's obviously what the Dominguez kind of thing was about. And then I think I said, followed up with it, I expect him now to bring on either Jota or Sosa, given that we're 1-0 down, but he didn't. I did find that odd. It was, I don't know. We have to wait to see what Nuno, if he gets asked about it, what he explains. But it felt much more of a substitution for a 0-0 and keep it tight effectively as it was before the goal. Just going back to the goal just very quickly. The one thing, I manage an under-13 team. We've done it for the last 3 or 4 years since they were in under-9s, and they're literally the most basic thing you teach the defenders. We scream it every week, don't let it bounce, and we did it twice, and it's just so basic. And I think going back to the communication thing, you could see from the angle you're talking about, Chief, with that first goal, Milenkovic almost sort of passes it on to Einer. And Einer's a little bit, when the free kick's taken, he's a little bit on his heels, and whether Milenkovic thinks he's going to be covering it around more than he is, and Einer's thinking that Milenkovic's going to deal with it, whether that's to do with Einer having been outside for a couple of weeks and just not quite up to speed. I don't know. It's confusing one. But come back to your point about substitutions, or that particular substitution, it felt strange. It wasn't one that I would have made given the game situation.
I'll throw that one at you, Chief, as well, but I didn't like the Taiwo one either. I was having flashbacks to Fulham at home where Wood and Taiwo didn't work. I don't think 2 big men up front together necessarily works. When you haven't got 2 wingers on the pitch to cross them the ball, we actually stopped getting the ball in the box from particularly good areas. I thought it felt like really muddled thinking to me from Nuno personally. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't love any of the subs. I was kind of pleading with my own heart, my own brain, being like, well, Taiwo owes us a big one. He hasn't had a big moment the whole year. Maybe this will be his moment. Wood knocks it down. He gets on the second ball, something, and he buries. But you're right. If you don't have the wingers to cross it in, then what's the point of having two big guys? So it didn't work. It certainly didn't work in that Fulham game either. So I don't know if they're seeing something in training or what, but it's like we've looked at that set up twice now and 0 for 2. So I think another big part of the problem is they just don't have the backup wingers. They don't have the depth. So it's like if it's Sosa or Silva or whoever, it's such a drop off from Hudson-Odoi that it's just like, well, we have to throw something else against the wall because it doesn't matter who we bring on when we're not at full strength up front.
Even if we don't have the wingers, Sosa will probably say, "Oh, I'm here." He doesn't have faith in him, does he, Paul? Because he's putting him on with 5 minutes to go, and Jota, was it 20 minutes to go?
Yeah.
He obviously doesn't back them, does he?
Yeah, it doesn't appear to. I mean, I'm not quite sure where Jota was playing either, because he brought him on Friday, didn't he? And I know we saw him at right back on the cup final. I couldn't quite work out exactly where he was playing tonight when he came on. He was just sort of in a bit of a hybrid position. And yeah, Sosa, I don't know, Sosa came on for a couple of minutes again on Sunday, didn't he? Actually looked quite bright, the odd touch that he had on Sunday. So which is why I thought that he might get the nod at half time ahead of Dominguez, particularly, as I say, given the game situation as a like for like replacement for Callum. But yeah, he doesn't seem to have faith in him. Yeah, we've said that enough times, haven't we, on here, that there is a small group that he does seem to have faith in, and when they're not performing or not fit, then we seem to be a bit confused about what comes next when it comes to what option to go to off the bench.
Did you ever feel like we were going to get back into it, Chief? I mean, I wrote down attacking notes in every game. I've written almost none today. Elanga had a shot that was skidded on the surface that was saved, but there wasn't a lot to write home about, was there?
No, but it's like you're kind of hoping a moment comes out of thin air, and that there was never any consistent attack, but their goals kind of came out of thin air, and a lot of Forest goals this year seemingly have come out of thin air. And I was hoping for a moment of brilliance or luck would have been even better. And it never materialized. So other than the one Wood header that he missed, I don't know, 6 yards wide, which you just think he kind of, 3 months ago, he goes back across the goalie's face and heads it into that other side. And it's a goal and it's 1-1 and we have life. And I felt this way on Sunday too, that if they could have gotten one, they would have gotten two. And it felt like that would have been a moment where Wood is sort of open and gets some space in the box. And if he buries that, then, we have new life and a new game on our hands. And nothing really ever materialized, though. It never felt good. No,
I think that's fair. And I think that's a good point. Chris Wood's probably had the best chance in the game and he's missed it. Yeah. Brentford's 2 goals, they are out and nothing. We've had 3 games this season at home where they should have been 0-0 draws, Fulham, Everton, and this one, and we've come out in the wrong side of all of them for whatever reason. I mean, I think they're numerous here today. The second goal, Paul, of all people, Milenkovic, who I don't think he's put a foot wrong all season. As Chief said, he's really dropped a bit of a stinker tonight, hasn't he? He was massively at fault for that one, and he didn't look sure of himself for whatever reason tonight.
Yeah, difficult to put your finger on it, isn't it? Given he's been so assured all season, just didn't look like he had those moments in him, and he's chosen to pack them both into one game. I mean, hopefully that's his mistakes out of the way, and he's I still think for me he's tonight obviously wasn't his greatest night, but I still think for me he's thus far probably the player of the season. I think we're going to need him to have big moments at both ends of the pitch between now and the end of the season. He's obviously popped up some important goals, and what better way to make amends for tonight than popping up with a goal at, from a corner or a free kick or whatever at Palace on Monday. He's definitely got it in him. I mean, he will be. I'm sure no one needs to tell him. He's the player who G's everybody else up and gives them all a rollicking when they're not doing their job. So no one's going to need to tell him that he's not had a great game tonight. He'll be the first one, I'm sure, to admit it, and I'm sure he'll be equally and massively determined to go and put that right next time he gets out on the pitch. And I think given what we've seen over the whole of the season, there's no reason to suggest he won't do that.
Yeah. I was going to comment on the Gibbs White sub as well. I can sort of see, like, they didn't have a left winger, so we can sort of just not play with a right back. I can sort of see that one, to be fair. But then, I don't know, Gibbs White had a bit of a stinker against, didn't he? Actually, I'll ask you now, who was your man of the match, Chief? Who emerged with any kind of credit tonight?
I think Nico was fine. I thought Nico Williams probably the best, but it's a short list. To say the least. I didn't think anybody looked all that impressive. So I guess by default, maybe Nico Williams.
Yeah, Nico is mine by quite a long way. To be honest, he was the only name that stood out for me. What about you, Paul?
It's the one name I've got written down as well. It's the only real contender, I think. Well, normally, we've got 4 or 5, haven't we, or even 5 or 6. Tonight was not a good night for the majority of players, and Nico had probably a solid 7.5 out of 10, which was enough to be comfortably above everybody else, I would say.
Let's talk. We'll just take a quick word from Nottingham Window Company. Then I want to move on. Actually, I'll find the advert. Have you got any final thoughts on this game, Chief? Anything you want to say? Because I don't want to dwell on it massively. I don't know what more we can say about it in detail. Anything you want to add on this one?
No, Paul kind of inspired me with his Brian Clough quote at the beginning. Like, I hope no one's stupid enough to count us out. I thought they needed three more wins, 9 more points from the last 5. That's still there. So you just have to go on a run here. You have to beat Palace at Selhurst, and then you got Leicester and West Ham. If you win those 3, the Chelsea game probably doesn't matter. And I think you can turn that last home game into a celebration, and that's what I want. So it's all still right there for him, but it's like, hyperbaric chamber, get the massage people out, get everybody hydrated, make sure everyone's ready to go for Monday, because today was bad. And, I do think things can unravel quickly. They need somebody to kind of grab them by the shirt collar and be ready to go. As Gibbs White said, it's another cup match, and they need to have it. They need 3 against Palace now.
We'll turn our attention to Palace, I think, next, certainly. Thanks very much to Nottingham Window Company, though, for their backing. If you're looking to buy new windows or doors, do check out the link in the description. No one wants to hear a long advert for Nottingham Window Company on a night like tonight, so thanks to them for their backing anyway. 3 wins, Paul. You referenced how bad our form is. Was it 10 points from 9? Did you say, or something like that?
I think 9 from 10, even. I can't remember. One or the other. Not great either way, whichever way you look at it.
No, and I kind of always believe in fixtures, form, momentum, all that kind of stuff. We don't have it. Do you see the 9 points there yourself?
I don't know if it's going to need to be 9, but what I would say is, it's Forest. We never do things the easy way. We never do things the easy way, do we? I mean, I said a few weeks ago that ahead of the Everton game, I think, I said, at which point we had 7 games left. I was like, if we can get 3 points from each pair of games leading up to Everton, that takes us to 66 pre the Everton game. So obviously we lost at home against Everton, which you would have think could have been the 3 points. We then went and beat Spurs to make that right. We've lost tonight, which you might think would be the 3 points from this current pair, this Brentford Palace pair. If, as a few comments have said, if we go and beat Palace on Monday, then kind of everything's back on track again. So, we're literally 1 result away from feeling a lot better again. So I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. By no means is it going to be an easy game. It's going to be a bloody difficult game, particularly if they turn up anything like they did in the game against Villa. In the cup semi-final. So be under no illusions, we've got a really, really tough game on Monday. But as I said earlier on, it almost feels like we need that game to come quicker rather than later, because the longer we stew over this performance tonight, the worse it's going to get. So I think we just need to get it out of our system, start looking ahead to, as you've just done, look to Monday and try and get some positivity back into the team, into the confidence, into the fan base. I'll be there on Monday, and I'm sure like everybody else who's going to go will be singing for 90 minutes plus, and hopefully that will be enough to get us over the line and get a positive result and get us back on track.
Simon asks, am I still confident of Champions League? I mean, no. I don't think anyone who sits here now and it's like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to do it. There's a lot of head over heart over head in that, because we're not playing well. We look knackered. So all the signs that I like to see to make me think, yeah, we're definitely going to do it, that I saw a few months ago, They're not there right now. But I'm not saying we're not going to do it, because Chelsea have got really tough games. Villa have probably got to win. If we've got to win 3, Villa have got to win 4, and they've got worse goal difference. So it's far from over. I would absolutely take a last day shootout with Chelsea right now, and I'd still back us in that if we show the signs that I'd like to see. Energy, the swagger, the confidence. I think confidence is so massive. Actually, I'll ask Chief a couple of questions. Firstly, Chief, I'll throw the same question to you, and I'll change it to Matt. Are you still confident of UCL, Chief?
Well, the concerning part now is that Liverpool has nothing to play for. So they've won the league, everything's wrapped up. So they play Chelsea next. And you would think, if that game was a month ago, Liverpool makes quick work of them. But if they're just on a parade through the end of the year, they might not show up, the way that Liverpool normally does. So now that game, if Chelsea beats Liverpool, then now it's like now their fixtures don't look that tough. So that makes me quite nervous. So I'm going to be the biggest. You'll never walk alone. I'll be singing the song. I'll be the biggest Liverpool fan ever over the weekend. But if that result goes their way, then yeah, I do feel pretty good about Forest chances, because I think they'll get 6 from Leicester and West Ham, and then they just got to find 3 somewhere else.
I see Gordon and other people in the chat saying Champions League's over. I mean, it's not over.
This chat is so negative. This chat's so negative. I saw multiple people saying Nuno out. Like, what are we talking about? He's probably still manager of the year. He didn't have his best night either. But chats in general, doesn't matter which country, they're way too negative. This has been a dream season, and we just got to refocus for Monday.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the other thing I was going to ask, and I'll throw it to Paul, was people saying, we're bottling it, we're choking. Players are cowards. Another thing I saw on Twitter at the top. I really can't agree with that. I mean, that feels pretty harsh, Paul, to say we're bottling it from where we were last season. And if bottling it is, say, teams with top players, City have bottled out this season, I would say, or whatever. We don't have amazing players. I'm answering the question for you. Sorry, are we bottling it, Paul?
No, I don't think we are. No, I just wanted to point out, Marte is right, dead right to point out in the comments that it's 13 points we've got in the 10 games since Brighton. Not 9.
Which is still not top 5.
Which is still not obviously top 4 form. But thanks for pointing that out. I don't think we're bottling it. It's just we've every single team throughout the course of the season hits a patch. I mean, Liverpool are pretty much the only team this season who've not had a patch of poor results. City, as we've just referred to, had an awful run. Arsenal have had sticky runs. Everybody in the league has had a sticky run. This is our worst run. Say 4 defeats in 5 in the last 5 games. It's just come at an awful time. And the quicker we snap out of it, which comes back to, again, the quicker we play again, get an opportunity to snap out of it, I think is going to help us. And I don't think it's a case of bottling it. I don't necessarily think it's tiredness either. I think everybody's tired at this stage of the season. I don't think we can attest it too much to that. Although there is, to counter that, there's a few stats been flying around in the last few weeks about the average number of minutes that certain Forest players have played. I think we've used less players than most teams, so the average number of minutes that the guys have got on the pitch is probably more than others. But we have it within our gift still, and come back to the point about are we confident or not? I think going into tonight, given Chelsea's last 2 results, it was probably always, irrespective of what happened tonight, was likely to go down to the last game of the season anyway. It's that last game of the season now, with us needing to beat Chelsea rather than needing not to lose. I think that's the dynamic that's shifted. I think it feels like that's shifted tonight. Obviously, still, a lot of things can happen over the next few games, both for us and Chelsea, and indeed Villa, of course, not out of it. But yeah, I think bottling it is very harsh to say, and we've still got 4 games to go. If we end up losing the next 4 games, then arguably that is something you could level at them. But I think at this stage, no. We need to see how they react from tonight before we start labelling them bottlers.
Do you think playing last is a factor, Chief? We're playing Monday night. We're going to be chasing tails again. Is that going to be a factor?
I mean, today I thought it was to their benefit. You could argue we had a game in hand, and it's like, all right, yeah, we're sitting 6th, but you win and you're in 3rd. So I think there is something beneficial about knowing what the job at hand is. Obviously, you always want to win, but you get to kind of look at the results, and maybe it's like, hey, we absolutely need 3 points, so maybe Nuno goes more attacking, and maybe Sosa does start if Callum Hudson-Odoi can't go on Monday, which I'm guessing he probably won't. So I think it gives you maybe a little bit of an advantage. So I don't mind that they're playing Monday instead of over the weekend.
Right, let's just dip into the comments and then we'll probably wrap things up, see if there's anything of note to pick up on. Yeah, I think this is another thing as well. Obviously, Paul Silverware saying, we've been 3rd for so long that it does feel pretty gutting to slide away as we are. I'm not saying we'll finish sliding away, but we were really defying the odds for so long, and the people are going to be loving it that we're sliding away, aren't they? All the pundits are like, I told you so.
Yeah, they may well do. And do you know what? If we end up finishing 6th, then crikey me. Let's go back. Not necessarily the last few weeks, but go back 4 or 5 months ago. And I remember you having a conversation with, I think it was Pete and Temps, and it must have been around Christmas time. Would you take 6th? Would you take 7th? And everyone was like, yeah, I think we would. And we're now we're saying 6th would be a disaster, which obviously, given the fact that we've been, as you say, in the top 3, 4 for such a long time, would be disappointing. But just to, again, take some perspective, step back. I mean, I was saying to you, I know we might not get time to go into it tonight, but today was Nuno's 55th game in charge in the Premier League, which is the same number of games that Cooper was in charge for. And over those 55 games, we've earned 30 more points under Nuno than we did under Cooper. Now, that's not for 1 second is that a slight at Cooper. He did, I think, a very good job in very unique circumstances. But the difference that we've seen in the last 16 months or whatever it is, 17 months since Nuno's come in, and the way he's transformed the football club, got us absolutely moving in the right direction. Yes, the last 4 or 5 games have not been what we wanted, but there's still 4 or 5 games to put that right. 4 games to put that right. And right, like I said at the beginning, I think anybody who writes us off, pundits, fans, whoever it may be, I think it would be doing so too early. I think we need to see how the next couple of games plays out. I come back to it again. Game week 36, we've got Leicester at home. Newcastle and Chelsea play each other. Villa go to Bournemouth, who are very much still in the hunt for Europe. That could be a pivotal weekend where everything sort of falls back into place again, and it's still in our hands now, but potentially even more so in our own hands after that game with West Ham and Chelsea to come. So let's not be too dismissive. Let's consign tonight to hopefully the history books with a good performance on Monday, and look forward rather than look back.
Yeah, I won't be looking at the Opta percentages. They've been a comfort for me for weeks, but they won't be now, I'd imagine. I think they'd be around 40%, so I won't be looking at that. There was one other I was going to throw at Chief. I've seen this comment as well quite a few times. Chief gets Sosa in the team, gets Sangare in the team, sorry. Sosa in there as well, and I think personally Sosa will be in for me if Hudson-Odoi can't play, and I think you said that as well. What about Sangare and other players? Are we ready to change the team and shake things up, or is that going a step too far?
I think that's a step too far. Sangare, I never need to see him again. If he comes on for 5 minutes at the end, so be it. But he hasn't done anything to earn a shirt. You're going to pick him over Yates or Dominguez at this point. Like I can't imagine that. If that's the the trump card, the ace in the hole, then we are in trouble, because he hasn't shown anything since signing with Forest to warrant starting a big game here. So dance with who brought you. We have 15 guys or so that Nuno seems to trust. Just ride them to the end of the year. If you're making big changes now, I think that's a sign that things really are unraveling. So Sosa by necessity. If Hudson-Odoi is out, I'm good with that. But I don't need to see Sangare in there.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. It's not the time for panic and making drastic changes to the team. I think the team picks itself, apart from the debate we've had all season, Yates or Dominguez. I think the rest of the team is pretty clear when everyone's fit, and that 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. I'm still backing those players because I don't see anyone on the bench who's better for me personally. Anything on that, Paul, before we depart?
No, not really. I think just to come back to the biggest grand scheme of things, there's a comment in the chat from an Everton fan who just says, okay, we would swap everything we have to be where you are now. And I think there's probably every team in the league from Villa downwards would say the same. Again, let's not lose sight of that. We're in a good position, all right. The momentum has waned a bit in the last few games, and we need to get that back. But just realise that we're in a pretty privileged position as a football club that we never expected to be in. If anybody would have been offered this position with 4 games to go, probably from, I would say, New Year's Day onwards, we probably would have all taken it, even though we were in the midst of that good run then. So again, we just need to, and again, I think from a fan base point of view, we need to not be too downbeat. Yes, we're going to have a bit of a grump tonight, and we'll probably wake up in the morning. It's not going to feel great, but over the weekend, let's refocus. So we want the players to do that. We want the staff to do that. So I think we all have a duty to do that as well, and get our minds in the right space, and hopefully channel some positivity towards the team that can get us back on track and carry us over the line. And if we end up at 6, I think our friend of the show, Danscape, put an interesting poll out on socials today about whether or not would we rather win the Europa League or just compete in the Champions League. And I think that is a valid question. If you look at the 2 teams that are likely to make up the final of the Europa League this year after tonight's games, they could end up finishing 16th and 17th in the Premier League. So from that perspective, if we do end up in that competition next season, we can go into it with a degree of confidence that we can go quite far in it. Whereas Champions League, all right, that's going to be an amazing ride. And of course, as you put out on your show the other day, Matt, about the financial impact of Champions League versus Europa League is very different. But nonetheless, we'll be in a competition that probably we've got a fair chance of doing well in if we end up in that competition next season. So all is not lost. Stay positive. Let's get over tonight and let's focus on Monday and the games beyond and feel good about ourselves.
I will talk myself into how great Europa League is in August. Okay, so until at this moment in this season, I will be very disappointed. So I really want Champions. I'd rather compete in Champions League personally and have a night in Milan or Barcelona or somewhere else. That would be incredible. A Wednesday night away somewhere. So Europa League, I'll have fun with it next year if that's the case. But that does feel like that would be such a disappointment at this stage.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'd be gutted if we didn't get Champions League, because we spent months talking about the players we're going to sign and all that. And as Chief says, that the places we're going to go and everything. So I would be gutted, but I'm not going to batter the players if we don't get there. I mean, they're the ones who've given us a great season. It's not going to hammer them for, if they fall away. And I'm not going to hammer Nuno. I'm critical of Nuno tonight more than I was at the FA Cup because I don't like his subs. But yeah, he's done a fantastic job. Tonight was rubbish.
And it's also, doesn't it, if you don't qualify for Champions, this team that we've all fallen in love with, it feels more likely that it gets broken up. And that's like the other hammer. It's like, not only did you not qualify, but maybe some Murillo or Gibbs White or some of these guys, now they have to go away. And where if you qualify for Champions League, all those guys are more than likely still going to be here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Check out, I did a podcast on all that the other day around the finances of it, and so massive, like 80 million quid versus 24 million quid for the Champions League versus Europa League. So that would be so painful. But like I say, I'm not going to batter them. Tonight was terrible. I don't think we were good at either end of the pitch, but I'm not going to give up. And I'm not going to hammer them. I just am worried. It does feel pretty precarious, but it can all change at Palace, hopefully, certainly. Right, we shall leave it there. We'll pick this up tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. So less than 12 hours from now. Prutz, who was at the game tonight, who I'm not sure if he was commentating or not, but Prutz was he on your feed?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll hear more from him.
He was great.
Oh, good. Good. Well, we'll hear more from Prutz. Mark will be on as well, and Pete, and they were at the game as well. So yeah, we'll pick that up then, and I'm sure we'll hear from Paul and Chief as well in the next few weeks or so. Right, if you've enjoyed this, do us a favour. Probably haven't enjoyed this at all. If you want to take pity on me, do me a favour. Hit like, hit subscribe. Do consider membership or Patreon, or just a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Paul Morley, thank you very much.
Thank you. I was going to say I've enjoyed it, but it's been a bit cathartic. And like I said, look, let's just keep our heads up and keep looking forward with positivity. And just on a one slight tangent off, I met with Raf, who obviously watches the show and takes part in the other podcast, the Talking Reds podcast. We went to see Matt Ford in London last night, and it was a brilliant show. And he's got a show, I think, coming up on the 5th of June at the Playhouse. Was chatting to him afterwards. There's still tickets left. So there's a bit of Forest chat in there, as well as all the political comedy and satire as well. So if you haven't got a ticket yet and you want to go and see Matt Ford, I urge you to go and buy a ticket, because it's an absolutely brilliant show. That's, I think, the 5th of June at the Playhouse. So go and do that if you haven't already, and that'll whatever situation we're in, that will take your mind off it, and you'll have a good night laughing away at Matt.
I do have a ticket. 6 of us have a ticket, I think.
You will enjoy it. It'll be brilliant. Yeah.
If you want any kind of extra incentive, or don't let this put you off, but 6 of us will be there, so you might bump into us as well at the Playhouse. Chief, thank you very much as well. Appreciate your time as ever.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was cathartic. I did enjoy talking to you guys. I just wish it was a happier note.
So, yeah, massively. Well, hopefully Monday will be a happy note. Do join us for that post-match show, or do join us from tomorrow as well if you can. But if not, then do have a good evening, and we shall see you soon.